The security camera flickered at me, almost mockingly, as I stood on my own front porch, still clad in my scrubs after a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER. My feet throbbed, my back screamed in protest, and all I wanted was to collapse into my bed. Instead, I was frozen in place, staring at Patricia's smug expression through the doorbell camera, struggling to process what she had just said. "I mean it, Emma," she went on, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against something off-screen. "David's finally come to his senses. This house belongs to our family, and you were never worthy of it. Or him. My name is Emma Chin, and at 32, I was living through every daughter-in-law's worst nightmare. But unlike most women in my position, I had seen this coming a long time ago. Patricia Williams had been trying to destroy my marriage to her precious son, David, since the moment we met 5 years ago. At first, her attacks were subtle. Pointed remarks about my Chinese heritage at family gatherings, constant jabs at my career choices. A doctor? But when will you have time for children? And, of course, her not-so-secret attempts to push David toward her friends' daughters instead. Over the past year, however, her efforts had escalated. The passive-aggressive digs had transformed into outright hostility, and tonight was, without a doubt, her grand finale. Shifting my weight, I adjusted my grip on my work bag, never breaking eye contact with the camera. "Where's David?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. I'd like to hear this from him. Patricia's laughter crackled through the speaker. "He's not here. He's staying at our house while he processes everything. But he left this for you." She lifted a piece of paper, what looked like a hastily scribbled note. "Would you like me to read it?" "No need," I replied, already reaching for my phone. "I'll just call him myself." "Oh, he's changed his number too. Fresh start and all that," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. I glanced at the 3 cardboard boxes stacked neatly beside the door. They hadn't been there when I left for work this morning. Clothes spilled from the top one, crumpled and carelessly stuffed inside. My throat tightened, not from sadness, but from rage. "Patricia," I said evenly, "I'm giving you one chance to open this door and explain what's really happening. Because right now, you're committing multiple crimes, and I don't think you want me to start listing them." She scoffed. "Crimes? This is my son's house. He has every right to." "This is my house," I cut in, my voice sharp. "My name is on the deed. I paid for it. What you're doing right now, illegal entry, theft, harassment, just to name a few." Silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. "David told me this was his house," she said at last, though uncertainty laced her voice now. I smiled, remembering the day I had finalized the purchase. David had hesitated when I insisted on putting only my name on the deed, but I had convinced him. For tax purposes, I'd claimed. The truth? I had seen how easily Patricia manipulated him, using guilt and money as weapons. I wasn't about to let her stake a claim on my home. "Would you like my lawyer to explain it to you?" I asked, already pulling up Jennifer's number. "She'd be happy to walk you through just how much trouble you're in." "You're bluffing," Patricia snapped, but I caught the slight tremor in her voice. "David would never let you." "I'm not bluffing," I interrupted, my patience gone. "And I'm done arguing through a camera. You have exactly 30 minutes to open that door and leave my house before I call the police. Your choice." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked back to my car. Sliding into the driver's seat, I exhaled slowly. My hands trembled slightly as I unlocked my phone, but my mind was sharp, focused. I had been preparing for this. Ever since last Christmas, when I overheard Patricia telling David he needed to man up and take control of his life, I had started documenting everything. Every passive-aggressive text, every manipulative phone call, every unexpected visit where she tried to catch me slipping. She thought she had won tonight. She had no idea what was coming as I dialed Jennifer, my lawyer and closest friend since college. She answered on the second ring. "Let me guess," she said dryly. The monster-in-law finally dropped the act. "She's changed my locks and claims David's left me." I said, keeping my eyes on the house. She's barricaded herself inside, spinning some story about how he's staying with them to process everything. Jennifer let out a sharp breath, followed by the rapid sound of typing. Have you spoken to David? No. Can't get through. According to Patricia, he's changed his number. I hesitated, a knot tightening in my stomach. Jen, something's not right. This isn't like him. She's done something to him. Want me to call the police? I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. Not yet. Give me 30 minutes. I want to try something first. But stay on standby. Always, she said. And Emma? Be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. I ended the call and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Mark Williams. David's younger brother answered almost instantly. Emma, thank God. I've been trying to get in touch with David all day. My stomach dropped. You can't reach him either? No, and Mom's acting weird. She told me he was working late, but when I called his office, they said he never showed up. His voice was tight with worry. What the hell is going on? I quickly filled him in, watching as lights flickered erratically inside my house. Patricia was agitated, probably scrambling to decide her next move. Holy, Mark exhaled when I finished. I knew Mom was losing it, but this is next level. Can you meet me here? I asked. And bring the spare key to your parents' house. I have a strong feeling that's where we'll find David. 20 minutes later, Mark pulled up outside my house, his face grim as he took in the sight of the boxes on the porch. She still hasn't come out? He asked, glancing toward the darkened security camera. No. I think she figured out how to disable it. Mark sighed. I called Dad. He's staying out of it. His exact words. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit so similar to David's that it made my heart ache. I'm so sorry, Emma. I knew Mom was unstable. But this isn't your fault, I said, checking my phone again. Still no word from David. Ready to go? He nodded, twirling his key ring. You really think she's keeping him there? Where else would she hide him? We took separate cars, just in case David needed transportation. The drive to the Williams estate felt endless, every minute stretching with uncertainty. Was David okay? Had Patricia finally pushed him too far? And most importantly, what had she done to make him go along with this? When we arrived, the house was cloaked in darkness, but Patricia's Mercedes sat in the driveway alongside David's Audi. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. He's here. Mark used his key to unlock the front door, and we moved carefully through the silent house. Everything was pristine. Every piece of furniture in its designated place. Every picture frame perfectly aligned. Patricia's obsession with control was evident in every inch of the space. Check the guest rooms, I whispered. I'll take the study. He nodded and headed upstairs while I made my way toward Robert Williams' study. David had always retreated there when he needed space, even as a child. It was one of the few rooms Patricia rarely entered. The door was locked, but a faint glow seeped through the gap beneath it. My pulse quickened. I knocked softly. David? A moment later, a groggy, confused voice answered. Dad! Relief and dread tangled inside me. David, it's me, Emma. Can you open the door? There was a shuffling sound, followed by slow, uneven footsteps. The door cracked open, and there he was, my husband. His normally sharp eyes were unfocused, his movements sluggish. He swayed slightly as he took me in. Emma? He blinked. What are you doing here? Mom said. I pushed the door open wider, just as he stumbled. Catching him, I steadied him, my heart pounding. David, what did she give you? Just something to help me sleep, he mumbled, leaning against me. Said I was too stressed. Needed to rest. Rage ignited in my chest. Patricia had drugged him, probably with sleeping pills, maybe something stronger. No wonder he had gone along with everything. Mark, I called out, my voice low but urgent. In here, Mark appeared in the doorway, his expression darkening the moment he saw David. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Is he drugged? I checked David's pupils, pinpointed. Yeah, call an ambulance. Now, the next few hours blurred together. Paramedics arrived first, then the police. David was transported to a hospital. Thankfully not mine, but a reputable one across town. Patricia, of course, was nowhere to be found, but a quick check of her credit card transactions showed she had booked a last-minute flight to her sister's house in Florida. Jennifer met me at the hospital just as David's toxicology results came in. The report confirmed what I already knew, a mix of heavy sedatives and anti-anxiety medication, enough to keep him pliant, disoriented, but not enough to cause immediate alarm. Well, Jennifer said grimly, scanning the results. Looks like we can add attempted poisoning to her charges, along with unlawful entry theft, false imprisonment. I don't care about the charges right now, I murmured, staring through the observation window where David slept. I just want him safe. Mark had already left to secure the house. Patricia thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming next. The locks were changed again. The police had meticulously documented everything, including Patricia's frantic attempts to erase evidence. She tried deleting the security footage, but I had already backed it up. Every smug threat, every damning word, preserved for the court to see. David finally woke fully around midnight, the last remnants of the drugs clearing from his system. I was beside him when his eyes opened, clear, aware, for the first time in what felt like days. Emma? His voice was rough, weak, as he reached for my hand. What happened? The last thing I remember, his brow furrowed. Mom. I squeezed his fingers gently. She's been drugging you, David. 4 days. Maybe longer. She wanted to look like you left me. His face crumpled as memories started flooding back. The tea, he whispered. She kept bringing me tea, said it would help with my stress. Then everything blurred. I remember her talking about the house, about you, but it was like I was underwater. I couldn't think clearly. I held him as he broke down, his body trembling with grief, anger, betrayal. David, the man who had always tried to see the best in people, even his mother, was finally confronting the truth. I'm so sorry, he murmured, voice thick with emotion. I should have seen it. I should have protected you from her. I cupped his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. You have nothing to be sorry for. She's sick, David. This is not your fault. 3 days later, the police caught up with Patricia at her sister's home in Tampa. She had been planning to flee to the Cayman Islands, where the Williams family had an old account dating back generations. Instead, she was arrested and extradited to face justice. The case against her was airtight, not just from that night, but from years of documented threats, harassment, and manipulation. The toxicology reports, the security footage, the break-in, her carefully orchestrated attempt to separate David from me and take control of his life. Robert Williams finally spoke out when the full extent of his wife's actions came to light. He filed for divorce and handed over even more damning evidence. Years of hidden camera footage showing Patricia's increasing instability, secret recordings of her plotting ways to remove me one way or another. Despite his father's desire to handle things privately, David refused. He testified in court, his voice steady, recounting how she had systematically poisoned him, using his trust against him, drugging him into submission. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She looked smaller, frilier, as the guards led her away, her carefully maintained facade cracking at last. She couldn't even bring herself to look at David, but the damage she had inflicted wouldn't disappear overnight. David needed therapy, time to process the betrayal, to untangle himself from the years of emotional manipulation. I stood by him through all of it, watching as he found his strength again, as he rediscovered who he was without her influence. We sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a small farm outside the city. Somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, a place where we could rebuild. Mark and his wife became frequent visitors, as did Robert, who was slowly learning how to be a father again, free from Patricia's shadow. About a year after everything, David and I sat on our new porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. He turned to me, his eyes clearer than they had been in years. "You knew, didn't you?" he asked softly. "That's why you kept the house in your name. Why you documented everything. You saw what she was capable of long before the rest of us." I nodded, lacing my fingers with his. I hoped I was wrong, but I needed to be ready just in case. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against my knuckles. "Thank you," he whispered, "for being strong enough to fight for us when I couldn't." We sat in silence, watching the sky shift from gold to deep violet. Sometimes, the worst moments in life lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Patricia had tried to destroy us, but in the end, all she had done was make us stronger. Occasionally, a letter still arrived from the prison. Patricia's desperate attempts to explain, to justify, to manipulate, even from behind bars. We never read them. Instead, they went straight into a file Jennifer kept, just in case. Because if there was one thing I had learned, it was that you could never be too prepared. But mostly, we focused on healing, on the life we were building. A family born from love and respect, not control and fear. Patricia had tried to tear us apart. Instead, she had proven just how unbreakable we were. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet and David slept soundly beside me, I thought about that moment, watching Patricia's smug expression through the security camera. She had thought she won. She had never understood what real love looked like. It wasn't about control. It wasn't about power. It was about standing side by side, even when everything else was falling apart. And that was a love worth fighting for.